This is Botswana. And look at this, Sierra Leone. Both of them are located in Africa and endowed with many natural resources, but they have one natural resource in common: diamond. Botswana, the world's second largest diamond producer, has the industry to employ nearly a fourth of the country's 1.5 million people and accounts for 2/3 of government income. Sierra Leone, on the other hand, is well known for its rich mineral deposit as blood diamond. This is why Botswana succeeded and Sierra Leone failed. Historically, economies rich in natural resources have grown more slowly than those with fewer of these resources. This groundbreaking idea was first established 20 years ago by Sachs and Warner, and it sparked a debate among social scientists about the relationship between natural resource availability and a country's economic success. Although Sachs and Warner's research has been challenged on occasion, the resource curse they propose appears to be true for many countries in sub-Saharan Africa. Even though the diamond industry plays a significant role in Sierra Leone's economy, the country's overall economic progress has stalled for most of the time since independence, and the average income of its citizens has been steadily declining. Among the few counterarguments to the resource curse, Botswana stands out. It began similarly to Sierra Leone. Despite its great diamond abundance, it was among the poorest countries in the world following independence. Since the 1970s, however, Botswana's yearly GDP and GDP per capita have grown at rates that place them among the world's most prosperous nations. To the majority of the people of Sierra Leone, diamonds have been more of a burden than an advantage. When rich alluvial resources were initially discovered by British colonialists in the 1930s, an estimated 9 million carats of high-quality diamonds have been mined from this tiny West African nation, yet the country has little to show for it. A decade-long civil war, which began in the early 1990s and ended in 2002, was fueled in large part by the diamond trade. The rebels' use of the money from the diamonds to buy weapons inspired the 2006 Leonardo DiCaprio movie Blood Diamond, which forever connected the human cost of diamond engagement rings in the minds of a generation of shoppers. Little of this wealth has trickled back to Sierra Leone, which remains one of the world's poorest and least developed nations. Many researchers have suggested that the diamond industries of the two countries are so diverse because of the influence of distinct political structures. While excellent governance helped Botswana's economy flourish, widespread corruption and wasteful spending doomed Sierra Leone's. The link between governance and economic performance sounds logical, but it doesn't explain why some places thrive economically while others struggle, or what factors led to the evolution of distinct political institutions in the first place. It has been argued that the two countries' colonial eras lay the groundwork for their differing political structures and subsequent economic outcomes. To understand why these two countries' governments are so different, we'll look at how they developed throughout colonialism and the years leading up to independence, when economic inequalities between them first became noticeable. Firstly, let's discuss Botswana and how good governance was implemented there, before contrasting it with Sierra Leone, and again as to why Sierra Leone as a country was unable to escape the resource curse owing to poor governance. There were 8 distinct ethnic groups that made up the population of Botswana, each with its own chief. This patron-client relationship between the chief and his people had aspects of direct democracy. Regular tribal meetings, known as Kagatla, were held where all members of the tribe could meet with the tribal leaders to discuss current political issues and hold them accountable for their policies. Agreement among the tribe's members is typically what leads to policymaking, hence these gatherings effectively restrained the authority of the ruling tribal elite. There was a lot of support for the chief and his authority among the population. In 1885, when Great Britain annexed Botswana as a territory, it did so with the primary goal of gaining access to the interior of the continent. As a result, it avoided interfering with the pre-existing tribal systems of Botswana. Tribal leaders in their various regions stayed in power for decades after a colonial state was established. British interest in Botswana at the time is demonstrated by the very little amount of royal money invested there. During this time of political instability, tribal structures were crucial to the formation of new political parties and the maturation of established ones. The Bechuanaland Democratic Party, BDP, was established in 1961 by Seretse Khama, successor to the late Ngado tribe chief. The moderate party gained 28 of 31 legislative council seats in 1965, thanks to the loyalty of tribal chiefs and their people. Seretse Khama later became Botswana's first president. Population support legitimized the BDP and its president. When Parliament established a legislation on private property rights for cattle owners, it protected the interests of party and government officials, including President Khama, who held substantial cattle holdings. Relationships between two variables et al. Contend that these laws helped build the rule of law and income equality. Despite these developments, sovereign Botswana was poor. After a decade of exploration, De Beers uncovered kimberlite diamond resources in the Central District in 1965. President Khama chose to transfer the Central District's property rights to Botswana so that the entire population might benefit from the earnings. As their extraction required technical knowledge, Botswana agreed to build up a local subsidiary of De Beers, known as Botswana, of which it held 15%. The administration quickly renegotiated the arrangement to 50-50. Therefore, the government was entitled to 50% of the proceeds from the extraction. It took some time to begin mining for diamonds and to discover and develop new mines. From 1966 to 1975-1976, the mining industry's contribution of GDP climbed from 0 to 17.5%, and from 1975 to 1986, it reached a peak of 48.9%. The expanding mining industry drove a significant boost in GDP throughout that period. The state government was able to invest in long-term initiatives such as rural development and social services, thanks to the money it received from selling state-owned assets, thereby boosting economic growth in the state. The BDP's continuous rule demonstrates the party's widespread support among the people, despite Botswana's officially acknowledged democratic status and generally high transparency. Okay, now back to Sierra Leone. Freetown, the capital of Sierra Leone, was established in 1787. The area was expanded by the British Crown into the countryside following the Berlin Convention of 1896. Local tribal chiefs were relatively powerful because they prevented rebellions, secured trade, and collected taxes in exchange for forced labor and tax shares, even though Great Britain governed the colony in Freetown. This arrangement is known as a protectorate. Kono, in eastern Sierra Leone, was the site of a 1930 diamond discovery. The colonial authorities had a hard time regulating mining because of the intermittent nature of these diamonds, unlike the majority of diamonds in Botswana. The colonial administration gave the Sierra Leone Selection Trust, a local subsidiary of the De Beers Corporation, a 99-year monopoly over all extraction in the country to strengthen control, SLST. Since 1931, when SLST mining operations began, the colony's budget has consistently been in the black, thanks to the surge in revenue from the diamond exports, 56%. However, local chiefs enjoyed the most benefits, as they were compensated by the government and SLTS for ensuring the safety of the extraction process and suppressing any potential rebellion. However, they maintained de facto ownership of the land and raised their standard of living by issuing mining permits to an expanding number of West African immigrants. Therefore, unlawful mining was common throughout the diamond regions. Foreign dealers who worked with the chiefs to facilitate smuggling significantly reduced state income and caused the state to lose a lot of money. Colonial authorities attempted a response by licensing miners to produce diamonds for sale to the state. However, these efforts to reform failed because they were dependent on corrupt local chiefs to carry them out. It was the Sierra Leone People's Party, SLPP, that secured independence from the British colonialists in 1961, and throughout the transition period, tribal chiefs in the diamond mining districts began backing the SLPP. In the inaugural elections of 1961, the SLPP prevailed, and Milton Margai was subsequently elected Prime Minister. During his presidency, the newly independent state and the tribal leaders maintained their traditional strong financial ties and cordial relationship. Consistent, if sluggish, economic development occurred from the current structure. While Botswana saw its largest gain in GDP per capita, the country's per capita output showed no signs of improvement due to persistently high levels of corruption. It seemed that in 1967, things began to shift. The All People's Congress, APC, a party formed as a rival to the SLPP, and their candidate Stevens won elections in 1967 and instituted far-reaching reforms. For example, the state, rather than the chiefs, began issuing mining licenses, and the government assumed control of SLST. Although the government had direct control over diamond extraction and its earnings and could have invested it in the state, President Stevens used the money to buy support and stay in power because, unlike his predecessor, he did not have support of tribal chiefs. Since he was always defrauding the government, income tax revenue and social programs suffered. Stevens' role opened the door to new levels of corruption in the state, but the foundation for his politics had already been laid out by the colonial government and the tribal chief system. Botswana's progress was significantly slowed by the government, despite the fact that the annual GDP rose under his tenure. The GDP per capita clearly demonstrates that the lack of progress in Sierra Leone's economy is due to poor leadership. The government of Botswana, which had effective control over the diamond extraction from the start, got direct benefits from the business and reinvested them in the state, stands out as the most remarkable aspect of the comparison. In comparison, Sierra Leone's government was not established autonomously, but rather by interfering with the colonial government. Consequently, for a long time, including after independence, the government did not exercise direct control over the resource extraction industry and instead reaped benefits from it on a more diffuse level. In addition, the government never reinvested the money it made from diamond sales. The entire system was sufficiently contaminated to let Stevens exploit the state for his personal advantages by the time the government gained full control of diamond extraction and its earnings. The economic growth of Sierra Leone and Botswana were thus greatly affected by the different paths their respective governments took. Thank you for listening, and don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to support the channel. Talk to you in the next one.